Hey guys, Novus here. Welcome back to From the Depths. I've been doing a bunch of editing and so forth on the vehicles. Battleship, last couple of days, sort of had a big overhaul done to it. Boy, this list is already getting to be a mess. Okay, so we're now up to 358k. Now, I feel like there's one more thing it could still use, which would be standard missile defenses that don't require lands to help distract big clusters of missiles and so forth. That'd just be a couple of radar buoys that would shoot out. That'd be easy enough to set up. So you might notice it looks a little bit different, primarily in terms of its guns. They have been changed back to advanced cannons. They have been moved up from the 250mm guns to the 500mm guns, and they work fairly effectively. Also, there was another thing I needed to do with the anti-torpedo torpedoes. There was one last thing I was going to try, and it was going to be, I believe it's Blowthorn's code for missile interceptors. I'm going to try that out, only because the only problem we still have with this ship is the torpedoes will actually... They're triggered by the munition detectors as well as the passive sonars, which means instead of just trying to intercept enemy torpedoes, they'll try and intercept not just enemy missiles, but also enemy bullets, from what I found. So if any shots, if they come flying in at an angle like this and they hit our shields and sort of deflect off and end up over here, our torpedoes will actually sail off over that way and go after like rounds that are sailing past, rounds that have missed and gone over the top and so forth. And any rounds that are of, you know, an alright size, that are kind of just dead in the water, it'll go after them too. So, had a few issues with that, so I gotta sort that out. But all that means is I gotta put both of these main guns into Group 1, so that way I can free up Group 5 by moving each of the other groups up one. And what that will do will allow me to set Group 5 to be the anti-torpedo torpedoes with, yeah, lure-based control in it and so forth. But yeah, that's something I'll probably be doing off camera, but for now, we've now got our main guns. They fire relatively quickly, and they fire 4 volleys from memory. Wait, no, it might be 8. I believe it's 8, sorry. And then she's done. And then it just reloads for a short amount of time, fairly short to be honest, and yeah, goes back to it. So these are not all the same. We are actually shooting one different round. I try to avoid this as much as I can, but kind of felt like I needed this in this gun because this is meant to be sort of a gun that's capable of busting up other battleships. Now to do that, we need to be making contact. And with shots that are traveling at 400 meters per second, although these are 374, there's a good chance of them getting deflected. Now, I actually still needed to, I believe I needed to change these by one more block, I think, from memory. But yeah, and add one more block into them. But what's going on is we're running EMP and Squash. Now they're not standard EMP, so we're running, yeah I did, okay. These actually need one more block there, take it up to 500mm. So, what will happen is they'll have a range of 4200, it's roughly the same as a Squash heads, I believe. Actually I think the Squash heads still have more, but 375 EMP strength, and because it's using the disruptor conduit, if it makes contact with a shield, it should more often than not break the shield. Now, for each volley there's one of them in it as well, so I mean, there's a good chance we should be able to bust through the enemy's shields. The only issue I've found is of course lands. They can be a little bit of a problem. These are our high explosive rounds, they're pretty simple. 3 gunpowder casings, inertial fuse, HE, Squash. The high explosives have been set down to a special factor of 0.4, so that way still got 15 meters radius explosive with 2,400 damage and 2,200 thump damage, so it's pretty decent, and yeah, good spalling metric still. I mean, it's not a bad little round. 9,000 kinetic damage, so when it does initially make contact, that 1.5 armor pierce is nothing, but it should still do a bunch of damage to an initial block, but the primary thing is just getting off the squash head and using that explosive damage as well to do a bunch of damage in the areas around. And as well as these can, if it's not well shielded as the enemy and their shields are close up to their hull, like 15 meter radius means, yeah, it's still going to do some damage to their hull and could then eventually eat in and take out their shield generators. So yeah, it can be useful for that, but it's also primarily for if they have any lambs on the outside. I found with having a 15 meter radius explosive hit, it tends to have a better chance of detonating on a shield and then breaking the lambs behind it, allowing then the disruptor shot to get through, boss their shields, and we can start making contact with the hull. Still using the frag shots for the main Gatling gun anti-air defense, and for these they are running at 100, so their damage for these ones is low. 128 damage, 60 fragments. It's still not bad for a little round like this, but it's not great. The reason for this is because it's down to a 30-degree cone, and the reason for that is to sort of try and punch holes through really light targets and just clean out the other side. Looks ridiculously well. Then we've got another one set off on a timed fuse, and this one has 383 damage, 84 fragments. And the idea behind this one is it's just going to be just a cloud of shrapnel that should be able to shear off wings and take out any exposed components and so forth and detonate the whole ship. So lambs, I believe, are the same as they were. I don't remember if they were part of the upgrades, because I did upgrade over a couple of days, but there were quite a lot of things that were done with this in that time. Just trying to make sure I remember it all. So yeah, these are the current lambs. We don't have any destabilizers on them now, so the damage stays up a bit better. They've been split off to 3 Q switches on this one, so it's to allow for pulse damage on one, continuous damage on the other. 292 continuous damage, still not bad. It should be more than enough to break most missiles and sort of smaller annoying targets, and the almost 6,000 pulse damage should be able to deal with most cram shots, torpedoes, all that sort of stuff. The laser saucer does wreck cram shots, especially if they're not too big. Then we've got I ripped the machine guns out of the 4 points here and just put a single heavy armor block there, just to feed armor along to the others with the bleed through. So it didn't cost much, and I just quickly slapped them in, like, yeah, they'll help a little bit there. Alright, so here we have our anti-torpedo torpedoes. Now I found out what's going wrong with them. I did so much fiddling around to try and get this functioning right. It was a long process before I realized it was going up to dead shells. But we still got the sonar buoys in them, so they will try and intercept enemy missiles, only once there aren't enemy shells sort of chilling in the water next to us beforehand. I am hoping, if I can set it up with the lure, that I'll be able to specify which objects to take from the table of available projectiles and so forth, and therefore overlook any kind of bullets and so forth. If I could set them up to specifically ignore aerial missiles and so forth as well, anything above a certain, like above the sea level, to just be ignored, that would be great. So I'm hoping that'll be something I can set up, and once that's done, it'll be perfect. The only issue it could have is that they're slightly less effective when they do have a sonar buoy in them, but I'd probably take that out if I could get it set up that way, and possibly even have like a could even have another set of fins, just to have ridiculous ability to have this thing sort of spin around and quickly face towards enemy torpedoes. So if it misses and it overshoots, it could spin around and go after them again. But it might even just be better to put a secondary propeller on it, so that way it can catch them under those circumstances. I don't know. It'd need a bit of mucking around, but the sonar buoy would need to come out. The reason being, as much as it is great in the sense that it pulls the enemy missiles to it, one thing that I do know occasionally happens with the flares, and I wouldn't want it happening with these, is that the enemy is targeting it, which means if it gets close enough to set off its missile interceptor, the enemy's also close enough to detonate itself and try and blow it up. So the enemy torpedoes could end up detonating our torpedoes. Then we've got standard torpedoes. They are highly effective. It doesn't have many, it's just got 16. They're not huge, they're just 5 block long torpedoes, but by God are they effective. They really do just eat away at the underside of the enemy's hull, which allows for our guns to take out the top side of it, and Bob's your uncle. They should go down pretty quickly. So yeah, that's pretty much everything on this from memory that has been changed. Now it's at the stage where before it could take on something like a judgment. It's well past that. Now I'm at the point where I need to start testing it with things like the Thea from the Steel Striders. So that's one of the most powerful ships. And yeah, it doesn't muck about. But at the moment our ship isn't at the stage where it can beat it yet. I mean, it can. I have had it beat it. But I did have to take manual control of the main guns and target the lambs. So if that's not done, then yeah, it looks like our ship will actually lose the fight. So yeah, it's not quite ready for that yet, but it's getting there. Because anything else that I've been pitting it up against lately that are from factions that we're likely to go up against next, which would likely be the White Flares and the Onyx Watch. They're the close ones that I was likely going to get into a fight with. Lightning Hoods are going to be a bit of a pain because they're going to be lasers galore. I accidentally mistook them for the White Flares in the campaign when I first ran into the White Flares briefly last time in the campaign, and yeah, kind of for a second I thought I was in the fight with the Lightning Hoods and was like, oh god, no, because everything would need changing, because I haven't set up anti-laser defenses on everything yet, so all the fleet is going to need an overhaul when that comes up. But for the moment, yeah, it's basically how it's set up. It still needs a passive radar, so that way it can detect enemy incoming missiles better and so forth, but it's fine. That would be for the lambs, so that way they can better detect them and hit them a little more effectively. As I feel that would help in terms of trying to back up the munition detectors when we do have big clumps of missiles coming from something like the Fear. So just quickly to show it off, let's bring out a judgment. Let's have a touch off. Now I would prefer if my ship didn't take combat control just now, because it will do dirty stuff. So what we'll quickly do is jump into this chair. That way we can control the ship. Out we go. It's running on slow. Alright, main guns are starting to fire. Last time I did this, we absolutely decimated that ship really quickly, but it sort of depends on where it gets hit, and yeah, there you go. So the reason this ship can't stand up to our ship at all at the moment is because of those shield busters. It doesn't actually have lambs, and because of its lack of lambs, it can't break our shield busting shells before they reach it, which means they very quickly tend to sort of bust up any shielding that they've got, from what I've found. Now, we don't seem to be immediately doing so now, but there you go. We've busted up the shielding in the center there now, so our shots are starting to get through, including all of our shrapnel. So they do, the main guns weaken it up while we're closing, and then once we get a bit closer, those Gatling guns open up. It does a ton of damage with its main guns, but regardless, anything that's dumb enough to get close with its shields down is going to cop those Gatling guns and get shredded apart, opening it up with the big squash shells to get inside. So as you can see, it just makes mincemeat out of this sort of ship now. And yeah, so this was basically the goal, get it to the point where you can fight down what we're currently going to be coming up against, and sort of improve it as is necessary, or build newer ships as is necessary, so on and so forth. But yeah, now this can deal with it. And it's not eating through resources too bad. I mean, as you can see, it sort of just tends to take the 1 or 2 per second. Now at the same time, usually when it's hitting... Oh, we killed this AI. It does help that we've also got torpedoes hitting underneath here, whilst we're breaking down their shields and their outer layers of armor and so forth with the big thump heads and the disruptor heads. So it can get in there and it can target what it wants to target. If it wants to break your AI, it's going to break your AI. Yeah, lands are pretty much the only defense against that. So yeah, while it's closing, breaks down their shields with these, and then starts getting the thump heads in, doing big damage, closes, and opens up with the Gatling guns. Now it kind of went in reverse just then. We started off straight away spraying the Gatling guns, which meant we sprayed out like probably 80 to 90% of our shots before they were effective. But regardless, yeah, it does the job. And we've got our torpedoes and so forth. So yeah, that's basically where this ship's at. Anything that I'm aware of that the Onyx Watch can throw out and that the White Flares can throw out, we're set up and ready to take out. The only thing that could pose any kind of a threat currently still, it's not a big deal, would be the Perforator, I believe. Now that was always a good ship. That was always a powerful ship. When they put that big... it's not a laser gun, but it's part of the lasers section. Yeah, the particle cannon. As soon as they put that particle cannon on it, dear God, did it get ridiculous. Because that thing... Yeah. Now... With this, I'm not 100%, so I'm going to have to test, but I'm hoping that smoke will still affect those like they do normal lasers. And if so, then it actually would be fairly quick and easy for us to set up our defenses against that. We just honestly need a bit of smoke ejectors, and I need to dump a bit of fuel into the ship, and since we don't run on fuel, it means it's all dedicated to that. And then Bob's your uncle, we should be fine to start dropping smoke. And yeah. Hopefully that'll work against the particle cannon. If not, I don't know what does, because I kind of just usually see them zap through like any army you've got and just straight out the other side of a ship and just continue on. And anything in between kind of gets hit, so no clue. But yeah, I guess that's it for now. It's looking pretty good for now. Looking like it's pretty damn set. The color has been brought down to a bit of a darker gray as well, just a bit darker. As yeah, I don't know. I found it was a bit too light. Was the previous color. But yeah, so that's it for now. I've got a couple more ships that I'm going to be doing some videos on today, though, to try and show off. It was also the main guns. I needed to do a video specifically on them. And what they are is they're the quad guns that we had, that I was mucking around with before for the advanced cannons. And all I've done is gone inside and ripped out a whole bunch of the armor, because they were like really, really, really heavily armored before. Now all they've got is sort of beams in certain places where it'll kind of bleed through and armor up a bunch of the surrounding armor and so forth in areas, and yeah. Whole thing should be pretty tough to get through still, but you pretty immediately find the guns. So just a quick thing, but I'll go through it properly afterwards. This one's very easy to set up. It's very basic and straightforward. But as you can see, there are a lot, and I mean a lot of cooling vents going on in this sucker. But in return, we are absolutely... Oh yeah, this is standard armor. Cool. Yeah, we can absolutely pelt out shots because of the cooldown. Now they're just running on... So what we've got is 3 meter autoloaders. Because I've cut like one of the layers at the top out as well, we've made up enough space that we can have 2 sets of 3 meters. And we have 2 on the right, 2 on the left in each sort of area. It basically ends up, yeah, we've got the 8 rounds, I believe, before we can, like before we have to reload. And each of these 4 areas has the 4 autoloaders in it. Now, as you can see, we don't hold many actual shells in each rack. It doesn't matter because it's a standard autoloader, it's filling them up about as quickly as it's taking them. As I believe it can grab 2 at a time. So, I mean, yeah, it'll load up the ammo racks quicker than it empties them, and we just continuously fire. So they're very dependable guns. Like, once they start firing, that's the rate they're firing. So, yeah, it's basically where that's at. It's the last quick thing. I don't think I showed exactly how long it takes to reload, so... quickly do that. But yeah, they are some heavy guns. Now the Thier, it has very similar guns, so having a look at it, like while I was fighting it, it has 1 more gun. We have 8, they have 9. They have 3 triple turrets, like 3 gun turrets, I guess. Anyway, yeah, this one has 2 4-barrel guns essentially. So yeah, it still has a gun. Now, as you can see, yeah, so they get thrown out of timing. I don't like having to have the disruptor head in there, but at the same time, I don't have enough space to put another gun in the ship. So I have considered maybe making 1 or 2 of the AA guns just a straight up disruptor gun that'll break their shields once it gets in closer, and having all 4 of these cannons firing off the high explosives, as it would up our damage tremendously. But yeah, that's stuff that can be fiddled around with later. The important part is, in the state it's currently in, it's already ready to fight and take down pretty much anything that we're currently up against. So we should be good for a while. It should be able to do the job, and it's something it can keep being improved on and slowly become more and more effective until it basically can't be beat. But yeah, so for now I guess that's it, and I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Have a good one, guys.